Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei traveled back in time to fix his future? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Prologue. When they first met, it had been terribly dark. It was so pitch black that Issei couldn't help himself from taking a page out of the creator's book and declaring, "Let there be light." And lo and behold, there was light. The inky abyss surrounding him surrendered to the power of imagination and his mastery over dreams, courtesy of a certain colossal dragon. It didn't require more than a dash of imagination. After all, this rendezvous occurred within the confines of his own mind. The bleak, suffocating void was swiftly replaced by a sprawling grassy field. It resembled the kind of serene, picturesque landscape where children might roll down hills with reckless abandon, much to the chagrin of their mothers. And husbands, often equally adventurous, would join the fun, swiftly earning their wives' disapproval. Or perhaps the roles would reverse, with women indulging in the thrill, trying to balance out the antics of foolish men like Issei. But they all knew deep down that they couldn't help but love these lovable idiots, including Issei himself. Although, in hindsight, he couldn't deny that his girls had engaged in more foolhardy antics than he ever did during his younger clueless days. And somehow, they always managed to blame it on him. Two reptilian emerald eyes blinked open, irritated by the sudden onslaught of brightness. As the crimson-scaled dragon took in the newfound surroundings, his eyes widened in surprise as instead of the oppressive darkness, a vibrant meadow now stretched before him. Udraig began, his massive scaly body towering over Issei. He surveyed the horizon before eventually fixing his gaze upon his partner, who was perched casually on the soft grass. "You?" Though his facial muscles were far inferior to humanoids and the like, Issei could tell his not yet loyal companion was raising an eyebrow at him. "Me," he replied, throwing in an obligatory hand wave. "Surprise," he added, offering a nonchalant wave. The Crimson Dragon Emperor bent down, his body now on all fours as he scrutinized Issei up close. In terms of appearance, nothing seemed amiss. Before him stood the same 18-year-old boy with unruly brown hair. Yet, Drake sensed that something was off. "You," he remarked, raising an invisible reptilian eyebrow in skepticism. "Me," Issei responded, still unruffled as he took a seat on the plush grass. Me. Unless Drake was dreaming himself, then there shouldn't be any human out there who could stand before a dragon the size of a skyscraper and hail them like he was just a sentient gecko on the wall. No, this boy wasn't Haidu Issei. His host shouldn't possess enough power or the will or even the insight to be aware of the presence trapped within his soul, let alone summoning him to a meeting. "You're not him," Drake declared, a hint of suspicion in his voice. "But I am," said the human, reclining comfortably on the grass. "It's still me. Haidu Issei." Drake was unimpressed by Issei's easygoing demeanor. It was almost as if he were dealing with an entirely different person wearing his host's skin. Issei leaned back, propping himself up on his elbows. "I promise I'm not lying. You could ask, well, I'm not entirely sure who you can ask right now. Office, maybe. Or Great Red. Not sure if they'd remember me here though." The pair of draconic emerald eyes widened in astonishment. "Office, the Ouroboros dragon. And Great Red. Yeah. How did you even know their names? Just yesterday you were fooling around in your school as per the ordinary, doing nothing good with your two idiotic accomplices." "Hey, don't talk smack about my buddies," Issei interrupted, conjuring an imaginary pebble and tossing it at Drake's massive head, causing the rock to bounce off harmlessly. "I know they're idiots, but they're my idiots." Drake's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You clearly know something I don't." Issei chuckled, his tone playful. "And that's what's bugging you, isn't it, Drakey? Want to know something else? I also know that in dragon years, you're still a wee baby." Drake spluttered in disbelief. How did you know? Who supplied you with this information?" "You did, dingus," Issei replied, his smirk turning to a smile. There was something strange about that smile. Felt too familiar. All too warm and genuine to be faked. Probably about some time within the next year. Hopefully we can lessen that into a month. I really could use a pal, honestly I feel my sanity slip in. Drake blinked, utterly perplexed, and slowly sat down like a bewildered dog on its hind legs. He didn't fully trust this Issei yet, but he was willing to listen. Because like it or not, he was stuck with whoever this Issei poser was. "What else do you know?" he prodded. "Convince me that you're from where I think you are." "Well, yes, I'm essentially my future self coming back to myself," he mumbled. "But fine. I know that you accidentally melted Tiamat's golden goose egg at one point when you and your equally simple-minded rival couldn't stop fighting like a married couple who can't get enough of each other despite hating each other to the bone." Drake bristled, ready to unleash his fiery wrath. "You dare to insult a dragon emperor?" He raised his entire body, casting an imposing shadow over his host, who remained unfazed and shot him an annoyed look. Drake had to do a double take and suddenly felt a bit nervous despite Issei's size being only a fraction of his. The Dragon Emperor who didn't know better, Issei said calmly but not lacking a mild temper underneath, almost like a father lecturing his unruly child. And yes, I do dare. It's in my middle name. Now, sit back down, scaly boy, and reflect on your past deeds. Consider the havoc you wreaked upon the underworld. Consider how you've effectively halved their population and then some. Drake reluctantly lowered himself on all fours again. But we were. Issei cut him off firmly. No excuses. I don't care who you were are. You too ended the lives of countless fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. Were those lives nothing more than an afterthought to you? Did you not care as long as you got to duke it out with the white boy? But he's my eternal Riva. You have a rival, great. But that's your rival. Why did everyone in hell have to suffer because you two wanted to punch each other into oblivion? How did you justify your duel as a license to murder everyone else? They interfered or bad. They were at war. Issei threw his hands out of frustration. You think God could just hit pause and tell everyone to look, let's chill out for a bit? Or the Satans just walk up to the Grigori generals and negotiate another date for the battle or just count it as a stalemate? Well now I'm imprisoned. Drake never cried, but in that moment, he felt like he wanted to. None of his previous hosts had ever addressed his past actions like this, let alone scolded him for them. That was in the past. What's your problem with it? Everything. Drake was taken aback. That's not reasonable. Yeah, right, as if what you did was reasonable to start with. Issei met his gaze firmly. Look, without giving away too much about your future, let's just say that the mess you caused back then led to major, capital P problems for not only the three major factions, but also for everyone else who had no part in it. It makes a Kendo's depressing childhood and severe daddy issues seem like a sitcom in comparison. Drake beat his head to the right, his curiosity piqued. A Kendo? The smiling devil. She's not the point, Issei responded, his tone growing more earnest. The point is you and Albion wrecking so much shit that God died. HRM, which God? The bearded one. The god of heaven. Whatever. You know who I meant. The dream world trembled as Drake bellowed. The Abrahamic god dead. Dude, easy down, you're causing a tremor in my head. I'm not that smart, what if my brain gets leaky? He's dead, Drake once again shouted, baffled. Then how will I ever get out of this cage? Is my soul forever sealed? Look, we'll get to that later, alright. I promise. I swear. Now chill down a little, seriously. I know you're a baby and all but you're still a dragon. Where's that pride of yours, huh? Drake went silent for a minute, calming himself down. How did you know about that? The KB'll drop that bombshell. Look, I'll fill you in later, but anyway, right now, you and I have more urgent matters to discuss. We've got a jam-packed future, my reptilian friend. I'm not a reptile. The tails, Issei waved his hand dismissively. We've got charity galas to crash, citizens to rescue, and an endless parade of generic evil organizations murder LLC. To thwart. Honestly, it's like they have a subscription service for evil. Sounds fun, huh? Well, it was so fun that I wanted to kill myself. Suddenly, the youthful boy before him seemed to age a decade in a heartbeat. He sprawled out on the grass, staring at the imaginary blue skies with frustration etched across his face. Drake observed his annoyance too genuine to be faked. If you know all that, then I suppose you really are from the future because I can't come up with any other reasonable explanation for it. Issei sighed, deflating like a punctured beach ball. I swear, man. It's really me. You're one of the few I really need to convince. He knew his draconic companion could be a bit thick in the head sometimes, but boy if it didn't grind his gears. Then again, he wouldn't be called the boobies Dragon Emperor if it wasn't for him, so Issei counted it as even. Look. Issei started. I'm sorry in advance. I'm not always prickly like this, I swear. I'm just fed up with things. Self-hate and all that jazz. We went through a lot. More than I asked. I stopped knowing if I was doing the right thing anymore. That's how messed up I am. Drake mulled over the situation, gazing at his host's determined expression. It was an expression that seemed too mature for an 18-year-old. I was never on the receiving end of a scolding like this, he admitted. But strangely enough, I believe you. Still, I'd like to hear how you managed to leap back in time. Ah, yes, the burning question, Issei replied, leaning in with a mischievous glint in his eye. But before we dive into the complexities of temporal shenanigans, we've got to address our long-distance relationship, buddy. Drake blinked, clearly caught off guard. Our relationship. Issei chuckled. I mean, who else can I chat with when you're the only dragon on speed dial? We're practically stuck together, so we might as well be friends, right? The heavenly dragon seemed to be considering this newfound friendship when Issei continued, now, about the time travel gig. You see, in my timeline, everything's been wiped clean. It's like we hit the cosmic reset button. Stuff that hasn't happened yet or that I managed to change just poof, gone. As for proof, Office and Great Red were my go-to time travel consultants, so go ask them. Bragg's curiosity was piqued. We're acquainted with them. Issei winked. Well, not exactly regular pen pals, but we've exchanged a few words. I can't imagine those conversations being dull. Oh, you have no idea. It's like trying to have a calm chat with a hurricane and a supernova. But hey, at least they're reliable when it comes to timey-wimey stuff. Bragg couldn't help but crack a smile. So why did you decide to grace us with your presence, future boy? Issei shot an annoyed glance. Hey, I'm getting to it. Brew some temper, didn't you? Drake noted, raising an eyebrow. Issei was momentarily taken aback, acutely aware of the anger issues he'd developed and carried with him. Yeah, evidently, he conceded, his tone a mix of self-awareness and exasperation. The man with the appearance of a boy let out a sigh that only exhausted, overworked adults possess. Sorry about that. My brain's small, but I've got a lot of emotions, see? I promise I'll put on my big boy pants soon. You admitted your wrongs at the very least, Drake muttered, a hint of self-reflection in his tone. He was somewhat ashamed that he couldn't do the same. Look, bud, I had everything, but you were reveling in it as well. It was our glory, after all. Our name echoed from the realm of the dead to Asgard and Nirvana. People recognized us instantly, asking for photographs and autographs, telling us how much of an inspiration we were. Any chipped pieces of our armor were auctioned off to fund orphanages, but we felt like neither of us had the time to just couldn't enjoy life anymore. Greg emitted a low rumbling sound as he contemplated. Did I ever realize it? Dude, you're my only confidant and we're practically stuck together. Not even death did us part. Issei admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. You died? Yeah. Twice. I survived both times. Got lucky. Again, details. How far from the future are you? If our fame transcends even realms, then surely you would have a spouse or two and children. Course I did, Issei replied, his tone bitter. But I only get to see my wives and kids once a year if I'm lucky. Just once. Not to brag, but the entire world's become pretty dependent on us. With great power there must also come great responsibility. Issei wanted to punch Drake because of how many times he had heard of that bullshit adage. Drake noticed his stern stare. I may not be in a place to tell you that considering what I've done, but if not us, then who? Yeah, right, Issei scoffed. You know what I think of that. It's a grade A load of baloney crafted by folks who'd rather sit on their laurels than find alternatives to relying on one guy who just wants to enjoy some family time. Yikes. Drake winced. How old were you again? I dunno. 23, probably. The dragon's eyes nearly fell off. 23, you're still that young, and yet your bitterness exceeds that of an elder dragon. Hey, man, show me another 23-year-old who has to battle evil gods, dragons, or brainwashed sacred gear users on an hourly basis, Issei shot back. It might excite you, but even you got fed up. By the way, you were the one who pitched this whole time-traveling idea, just to set the record straight, though I'm the one that pulled the trigger. Fair point, Drake conceded, nodding. If a battle-hardened enthusiast like him was spewing such heresy, it was clear they were knee-deep in an epic crisis. Good, Issei nodded. Before I got sent back, I made some promises. Promises that we need to keep because they're my words and by extension, your obligation too. How am I included in your commitment? Issei raised an eyebrow and replied with a playful tone, your future self was kind enough to agree on your behalf, so if you have any complaints, feel free to take it up with him. This would be a very trippy dream if Drake was dreaming all of it. Fine. Great. Awesome. Well, first off, once it's possible, we're grabbing Office. We keep her safe from being manipulated and make her our friend, Issei declared confidently that Drake found it hard to doubt him. We'll surround her with good people who don't want to use her for ulterior motives. And believe it or not, that's the easy part. Very well. What would a great red request from us? Issei shook his head. Nah, that crimson rascal didn't ask for anything in return. He's just a laid-back, go-with-the-flow kind of dragon. Said whatever happens to him, happens. He's cool like that. Damn dragon just wants to be the coolest. But if not him, then who? You, Issei continued, his tone growing serious, I made a promise to the future you. Or I guess past you. I dunno. Whatever. But here's the million-dollar question. Do you really want to know? Drake took a thoughtful pause. Despite my curiosity, I think it's best you decide whether I'm ready for it. Classic Drake move, throwing it all back on me, Issei quipped, his grin returning. You must think you're pretty cool for that, huh? No, that's not what I meant to do at all. Drake protested, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his draconic demeanor. Issei gave his partner an understanding smile. I know, buddy. I'm just messing with you. Drake felt a strange sensation tugging at the corner of his scaly cheek, something he couldn't quite attribute to dragon emotions. Who else did you make promises to? Your spouses, perhaps? His smile fell off his face, replaced quickly by a frown. No, they'd never allow it. I mentioned it as a joke to one of them during those brief moments we had together before we were off to deal with the world's mess. Her reaction? Well, it was like I'd told her I was filing for a divorce. In a way, she's not entirely wrong, I suppose. I see it must be a tough decision. A bold one, indeed, Drake remarked, his curiosity piqued. But isn't coming back to your past, in essence, a betrayal of the world you left behind? Someone once said better to betray the world than let it betray me, Issei retorted, his expression unapologetic. As Issei shifted his gaze to meet Drake's, the dragon was taken aback by the sight. Instead of regret or self-doubt, he saw a carefree smile, devoid of guilt, almost bordering on a smirk. It was the kind of expression that should have been weighed down by remorse, but Issei carried it effortlessly. The older I got, the more I regretted ever wanting to be a hero. I can't say if I've grown wiser, but I'm certainly getting older, Issei mused. I wanted a fresh start. Hit the reset button on my sanity. Living for the world felt like clinging to a palm tree on a sinking island, and every high tide that came along chipped away at it. I wasn't living for myself, Drake. We weren't living for ourselves. We became the world's janitors, tasked with cleaning up the mess everyone else couldn't handle. And you know what? The world can suck a fat one for that. With resolve in his eyes, Issei stood up and crossed his arms casually. Look, I know it's selfish. But it's not like I'm planning to go full-on villain mode. Sure, I might have left those people in that future hanging, but after everything I've done for them, I think it's fair to say they owe me this much. And despite how sociopathic I may sound right now, there's no way for me to go back anyway. That future's been erased for me, and these hands are the ones that did it. Issei wiggled his fingers, the same way he would if there were a pair of breasts in front of him. Drake could only stare in contemplation, unable to find a suitable response. And don't you dare criticize me for it, Drake, Issei warned, his tone firm. You were right there with me, every step of the way. Right now, you might not be as disillusioned as I am, but I share my perspective with future you. It's a confusing mess, I know. But worrying too much about a future that's no longer in your control. Well, let's just say that's like trying to tame a fire-breathing chicken. Issei pressed on, recognizing the dragon's hesitation. You know, I could have just fed you some convenient lie about coming back from the future because everything went to hell, that the world just took a nosedive, plunged off a cliff, and we were left stuck in the pits with no ladder out. But that wouldn't be fair to you, Drake. You're the last soul in all these godforsaken worlds that I'd ever want to lie to, even out of necessity. Drake held him in silence. Never had he become this conflicted, but there was a first for everything. Even for dragons. And here's the kicker, Issei continued, his tone taking on a more introspective note. I'm weaker than a week-old kitten now, thanks to the old me who never participated in anything meaningful and wanked his days off while being a delusional garbage to society. Ha! A common ground. Issei snorted. And I'm going to need your help if we want to ensure that our future is better than the last one for our sake and for everyone else we'll come to care about. Well, mostly for my sake, I'll be completely honest. I'm selfish like that. Drake snorted. You're the only one I can rely on, Drake. Without you, I'd probably be nothing more than a hopeless nobody or, worse yet, 6 feet under. So, here's the billion-dollar question for our lives. Are you in, or are you out? I'm in, Drake replied without hesitation. I had my worries that you might have turned, well, evil in a sense, but everything you've said rings true. Even if you were plotting world domination, there's not much I can do to stop you either way. Sacred gears, even a Longinus, are just tools. Most of your predecessors treated me as nothing more than that. I'm sure you've heard the stories. This is actually the first time you told me that, but sure. Yay us. Bros for life. Oh, Drake's emerald eyes blinked in surprise, a touch embarrassed now. Well, I don't need your pity or anything. It's not like I cared about those old folks, they're just relics of history now. Rather, for the first time since you became my possessor, I'm actually looking forward to the future we'll shape together, partner. He absolutely. We're going to be the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, and everything in between. Issei exclaimed, punctuating his words with an okay hand sign and a cheeky grin. Now, about those promises. I made 2 with you. I won't reveal the crucial one since you made me swear to keep it, but there's another one. Drake tilted his colossal head to one side. And what might that be? I promised you that I'd never let anyone give you ridiculous nicknames like Breast Dragon Emperor Titty Dragon or Op-Eye Dorgan for our Japanese fans and those foreign weebs who insist on using Japanese Romaji just because they're weebs. Stop. What in the name of the damned are you blabbering about? Who dared to give me such demeaning titles? Well. The world did. Then the world will pay for this insult. Well, technically, it hasn't happened yet, Issei pointed out, raising an eyebrow. Remember, this is the past for me, and it hasn't occurred in your timeline. Gradually, Drake's rage subsided as he realized the truth in Issei's words. But to think that someone would dare to insult me with such epithets, what could have possibly led to this affront? How could they tarnish my honor as the Crimson Dragon Emperor? I am the proud Welsh dragon. I don't think of nonsensical perversion. That's within Fafnir's territory. Not mine. Issei nodded, feigning empathy. I know, right? So embarrassing. It's almost as if you were hosted by some idiot whose life decisions were controlled by his beep. At that, Drake paused, slowly connecting the dots, and then it dawned on him. He had a very strong inkling that the perpetrator might be standing right in front of him. Surely it couldn't have been you, right? Well, technically, it's the past me who did it, so by my impeccable logic, I'm completely innocent. Unless, of course, I decide to follow in past me's footsteps and bestow upon you those delightful nicknames just to watch you squirm. Before they could delve any further into this bizarre conversation, their shared dream world was violently shaken. It felt as if an earthquake had barged in, threatening to disrupt their conversation. An all-powerful voice boomed through their surroundings. Wake up. Wake up. Sheesh, master, if you don't wake up, I'm going to give you a big, sloppy kiss. Hi do Issei. Issei, with an exaggerated gasp, suddenly glanced at an invisible watch. Oops. Would you look at the time? It's school o'clock. Syagatagabi. Bri. And Drake's anguished roar echoed through the dream realm as Issei abruptly left him, casting the dragon back into the depths of his own soul, where he could do little but sit and contemplate his existence. Issei's newfound powerlessness hit him like a sack of magical bricks. No longer could he effortlessly contort steel with a mere flick of his fingers, soar through the skies with the grace of a majestic goose, or shoot colossal laser beams while yelling out absurd attack names. Even his night vision decided it had better things to do, leaving him feeling more like a mundane mortal than the larger-than-life hero he once was. But this was worth every bit of that loss. Regrets might sneak up on him later like a sneaky ninja, but dwelling on possible future bummers wasn't his style. He was living in the past, which had inexplicably become his present, and he had zero intentions of sulking about his own decisions. Sure, he'd developed a slight cynicism, but his core optimism remained unshaken because, honestly, things could always get a hell of a lot worse. In the midst of the chaos, as he sprinted across the school's track field, a frenzied mob of Kendo girls hot on his heels, Issei couldn't help but burst into laughter. What the hell is wrong with you, Haidu? Are you seriously laughing right now? On his right, the bald Mitsuda yelled at him. Did they get you in the head? They say only a man who has lost everything can laugh in the face of certain death, Motohama philosophized, his breaths resembling an overheating steam engine. Oh, I've definitely lost everything, Issei replied with a grin, abruptly halting in his tracks, causing a dramatic cloud of dust to billow up from his screeching shoes. His two pals slowed their pace but didn't stop. Mitsuda's eyes widened with realization. Ice, you moron, why are you stopping? You don't have to do this, man. Motohama pleaded, realizing that Issei seemed determined to sacrifice himself to divert the rage of the Kendo girls. We can still get out of this mess if we stick together. There's no need for you to throw yourself under the rampaging Kendo girls' bus. My friends, Issei said with that enigmatic smile of his, the kind you'd expect from a character ready to make a heroic exit. Leave them to me. Live long and prosper, and remember my name. Tell my wife I love her. He raised his right hand, offering a confident thumbs up. Ice, you lunatic. You don't even have a wife. Forget it, Mitsuda. Motohama held his friend back, preventing him from rushing back to face the oncoming deluge of angry Kendo girls. This is his decision to make. We can't take it away from him. It just wouldn't be right. As the stampede grew larger in the horizon, the baldy nodded sagaciously. You're right. We should bail. Mitsuda dropped their dramatic act as he knew the danger was very, very imminent. He knew he wasn't planning to receive another hit to his family jewels. We won't forget this, Ice. Next ramen is my treat. Believe it. Issei nodded with a triumphant smile and a glorious thumbs up, knowing his sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. Of course, he didn't just plan to ruin his future by having his balls broken by a wooden practice sword. As the sea of angry girls closed in, encircling him and dashing his hopes of escape, he focused on the task at hand. He might not be the powerhouse he once was, but his battle-hardened experience with mythological creatures gave him an edge even in his twig-like state. His body was yet to be strong, but his mind remained sharpened. So sharp it could cut positivity. Facing off against an entire battalion, however, seemed like a surefire way to land himself in the infirmary, effectively ruining the rest of his day. Haha, you're a brave man, Haidu, the brunette captain of the Kendo team stepped forward, addressing Issei as she emerged from the girl mob. Speaking of bodies, Murayama, their captain, sported the most formidable pair of breasts among the Kendo squad members. It was purely coincidental that she was their captain, of course. But don't think your bravery will save you from your punishment. What if I buy you lunch? We get free lunch. Aw, bowls, Issei raised his empty palms, causing the girls to instinctively back away from him, as if he were emitting reverse cooties. I'm here to negotiate the terms of my release. Terms of your release? You still think you can get away from this? How many times have you peeped on us? Probably more times than we've been caught, Issei quipped, and somehow, he'd managed to avoid expulsion, even under the strict rule of Sona Citri. Go figure. But hold on your horses. Before you swing those wooden swords, consider this. Why oh why are we risking our lives bi-weekly in the age of technology? We could just Google boobies and voila unfiltered mommy milkers without the danger of getting clobbered. Murayama blinked, then pointed her wooden sword menacingly at him. Disgusting. Get to the point, Haidu. What are you suggesting? The point is someone might be paying us. And might be paying us good money for a single picture, an amount of dosh that makes us consider our life is worth throwing away because we might be owing another person big money, forcing us to become the way we are now, as three shameless perverts. Really? Murayama lowered her weapon, a concerned expression now on her face, as if contemplating the possibility that her classmate was ensnared in a web of debt. How much do you owe? Huh? Oh, no. I said might. I was just making stuff up so my boys could get a head start before you come after them. Silence hung in the air like a dark cloud after a storm. His friend's sympathy vanished as quickly as it had appeared when confronted with Issei's honesty. Alright then. Not only did you peep, but you also played with my feelings. Today is the day you regret being born, Haidu Issei. Won't be the first, Issei shrugged. Do I get a last request? He asked, trying to buy himself some time as he surveyed the looming circle of angry girls. I'm not armed, and I really don't want to hurt anyone because I can't hurt anyone. Fighting girls just doesn't seem right. Goes against the way of the samurai, you know. Yeah? And what do you think we should do? Just let you off scot-free? One of the girls in the back yapped. Watch your face. A valid point, to be honest. I can't believe I'm saying this, the captain grouched, but no matter how vile you are, sacrificing yourself for your friends is still a selfless act. Even coming from you. Sweet, Issei smiled. So I go. Mayamura-san. You stay. And it's Murayama. Issei's triumphant expression faded. Oh. We're still going to hit you, but I'll give you a chance. There's around 20 of us, but if you can endure everything I throw at you for 1 minute, we'll let you off this time. Oh? You can try to dodge, Murayama continued, but if you get hit just once, we'll continue with our previous punishment, beating you half to death. But Captain. No buts. He could have run, but he chose to retain whatever left of his dignity. It's only right to give him a chance. And have faith in me, I'm your captain, after all. The girls cheered. Of course. You're so cool, Captain, Issei added. Quite, you. Zipping up, Issei breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness for Murayama's fondness for Bullshido. Things could have taken a much darker turn. He might have ended up not just regretting being born, but looking like a corpse too once they were done with him. Even if the defenseless is a perv. A girl with short pink hair spoke up. Caddis, despite her kind personality, could deliver a mean swing when provoked, and she was quite bloodthirsty herself. Murayama, on the other hand, upheld her honor and principles with great conviction. Even if the defenseless is a perv. Murayama declared firmly, ending the debate. We'll each face him one-on-one. Kendo is a noble sport, not a gangbang. Heh. Gangbang, this one's the reverse one. And not in a good way, Issei muttered quietly, then noticed the girls glaring daggers at him. Sorry, I'll be quiet now. Murayama took charge, ordering the girls to create a circle to give them room. She pointed her wooden sword at Issei. No running away, Haidu. We're giving you a chance. Don't waste it by betraying us. Yep. I cross my heart. I might be a perv, but I ain't no beep. We'll see about that, Murayama muttered as she readied her sword, gripping the wooden weapon firmly. I'll be your first. Please be gentle with that hard stick. Murayama did not appreciate that innuendo. Issei prepared himself, adopting a self-defense stance with open palms at chest height, face exposed, and feet spaced apart. While he could have fought back and inflicted some serious damage with his counters, he knew this wasn't about overpowering them. This was to see if his body could keep up with his mind. And if not, to what extent. He couldn't hit as hard as his strength was pathetic, but dodging should still be in his area of expertise. Hard. Murayama launched a direct assault, stepping forward and thrusting her sword straight toward his nose, attempting to knock him out. An intention Issei was thankful for, since that would spare him from the rest of the girl's anger, but getting hit at first strike would defeat the point. So Issei took one step back and watched the white tip of the sword hang just inches from his nose. Taken aback, Murayama retracted her sword, straightening her posture. You've developed some good reflexes, Haidu, she muttered. Not many can dodge my first attack like that. You should be proud. Really? You sure you didn't just screw up? I take that back. Her movement, trained as she was easy to read. He just didn't have as much time to react as he was a human boy with the experience of a world guardian, a made-up title to make him feel good given by the world. Whatever that meant. Issei continued to evade Murayama's strikes as she swung horizontally from his right side. He bobbed and weaved like a skilled boxer, darting to the right to avoid her follow-up attack, a downward strike that hit nothing but air and grazed his bangs. Having faced opponents with fancier and deadlier swords in the past, Issei knew their glaring weakness. They couldn't do much when he got in close. So he pressed forward. Slowly, but surely, as he continued to dodge Murayama's swings, he made his way to her. Realizing this, the Kendo club captain mitigated his advance by stepping back. For each forward step he took, she took one step backward, some slightly to her left or right, so she wouldn't be backed against a live wall. The 60 seconds were nearly over without Murayama ever landing a hit and trying to regain distance to strike with her sword. Frustration and confusion started to settle, and her finesse was getting weakened by both fatigue and annoyance, and her white shirt became dusted with sand. Aha, she panted, taking a break from her assault to catch her breath. This wasn't going as planned. Issei's movements were efficient and economical, wasting no unnecessary energy. He looked remarkably fit despite a bit of sweat on his cheek. This body isn't as half bad as I thought. That was splendidly done, partner. Drake complimented. Oh? You can talk to me like this again now. Sweet. I wonder if I can still mute you. Drake was muted. And unmuted. So you can sever our link already. I really wonder how capable you were before. Pretty heckin' strong, dude. One sneeze and an entire mountain is gone, Issei said, and Drake couldn't tell if it was a joke or a simple truth. Anyway, talk to you later. Shouting her kai, essentially a battlecry term for Kendo, pumping herself up as if shouting it could make her strike harder or more accurately, Murayama leapt in, feinted, and aimed for another downward attack to his head. As she made her very linear slash, Issei shifted to his side and closed in on her like an oncoming train. The surprise charge was successful. His unexpected surge caught Murayama off guard and she hastily retreated, losing her balance on the uneven ground and stumbling backward. But Issei managed to break her fall by grasping the wooden sword she still clutched tightly, even as she lost her balance. Pulling it back, he then extended his free arm around her back, performing an impromptu tango dip, albeit with a wooden sword in place of a hand. Several audible gasps were made. And in Murayama's face of shock and bewilderment and the creeping red-hot blush that was starting to conquer her cheeks, an image of Ria's Gremory's blushing face instead occupied his mind. That would be nice. He did plan on redeeming himself for all the missed hints that were thrown at him during his early life as a reincarnated devil. How he could be denser than a black hole was merely due to his lack of confidence, and if given the chance, he wasn't going to break hearts this time by being a brainless dildo. Never. Not again. Haidu. On Murayama's part, her heart was trying to jump out of her chest, which didn't make sense to her. This must be because he was a man, yes. A boy. He was just a boy and nothing more, and she was only flustered because he was the opposite member of her sex, who was also a massive pervert. Yes, that's it. Nothing more. Absolutely nothing more. So why couldn't she maintain eye contact with him? Yes, I failed, Issei said, sobering up and helping Murayama get back onto her feet and unhanding her sword without even thinking about it. His flash of sadness wasn't caught by anyone present. He kicked the ground in a very mature display of expressing his disappointment. Danged, I was doing so well. Murayama stared at him, befuddled. The Kendo club members exchanged silent glances and Caddis finally spoke up, Captain. Without a noise, they realized the fact that their captain and leader was frozen in place and face completely beet red was a very, very, very bad omen. And though they hated to admit it, his performance and the glamorous finish was something some of the girls had sometimes daydreamed about. No one truly expected they would witness a live reenactment of their daydream and be performed by the captain they adored and the pervert they despised. What? Quit staring at me like that and get on with it. It's never too late to develop masochism, I guess, Issei said, resigning to his fate as he closed his eyes. While it wasn't within his plan to be sent to the infirmary, he didn't mind making several adjustments if things didn't go as planned. The good plan is a flexible plan, as he believed, since that way the plan never truly fails, only different degrees of success. However, Murayama was quick to protest, I refuse to count that. That's not a swing I made, and you were holding me back from a fall. I refuse to accept a hollow victory. Yeah, well, I mean, he did dodge everything you threw at him for a whole minute, Kata said quietly, not really wanting to be heard. But can't we take one hollow victory? Just once. Just this time. Kata-chan, that's not fair for him, a girl argued. And the rest started to back him. Are we going against Captain's words? I don't want to do that. But he's. As the girls bickered amongst themselves, Issei opened his eyes. He had stopped listening for quite a bit and now wondering what the hell was the damn holdup. So am I staying or what? You can go, but the next time we catch you peeping again. Yeah, don't worry, he slinked past the girls who ruefully gave way. Won't get caught next time. Smell you later, sword nerds. WHYU. Before they could even think of chasing him again, Haidu Issei had executed his greatest escape yet. As he moved forward in the second, technically third, life, Issei contemplated whether it was considered a third life at all. He retained his memories and hadn't died or been hit by a truck. He didn't intend to completely reshape his future, but rather explore the roads he hadn't taken while ensuring the results remained desirable. This was all about taking or avoiding responsibilities to make his future less packed with save-the-world missions. And if fate dared to try and mess with him, he swore to make her his bitch this time. Just like Raynare, who had been waiting for his arrival by the school gate, steadily losing her patience, unaware that she was on course to make the worst mistake of her life. Raynare. His legitimate first ever non-2D crush that actually dated him. Their relationship was as genuine as a counterfeit Rolex. It involved deceit, a quick demise, and a complete lack of future prospects. Yet, in the brief moments they spent together, Issei felt a warmth he couldn't quite explain. Sure, it was all part of her plan to evaluate his worth before snuffing out his existence, but for a gullible guy like him, those moments felt real. His laughter was genuine, his awkwardness painfully so. He genuinely believed he was doing great on that faux date. But, in reality, Issei was once just a gullible young man with an awfully optimistic outlook on life and a steadfast belief in more abstract concepts, like hope. When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful. The miracle, oh, it was beautiful, magical. And all the birds in the trees, well, they'd be singing so happily. Oh, joyfully, oh, playfully watching me. But then they sent me away to teach me how to be sensible. Logical, oh, responsible, practical. Then they showed me a world where I could be so dependable. Oh, clinical, oh, intellectual, cynical. He had let his world fall to ruin to save theirs. Now it was his turn to rescue his world, all while ensuring his actions didn't inadvertently trigger another cataclysm. Not that he aspired to be a world savior anymore, the hero chapter of his life was firmly in the past. No, his motivation was much simpler. He didn't want to see his girls entangled in a world gone awry. After all, he yearned to spend quality time with them, not wait at home like a deadbeat husband while they were out carrying their duties and being responsible adults and such. The sudden, timid voice of "Will you go out with me?" shattered his thoughts, pulling him back to the present and the pressing matter at hand. Raynare. Killing her now was out of the question. Compared to her, he was a pathetic twig and she was a veritable weed whacker. Besides, revenge against her had grown stale, a pointless endeavor. More to that, her critical role in Asia's arrival and the expelled saint's tragic demise complicated matters. So, Issei needed to be exceedingly cautious to avoid drastically altering the future. He knew precisely how to utilize her to his advantage. Get him to Azazel. The governor was a key player, the sanest of the major faction leaders, and conveniently, the only one who wasn't infatuated with none of his siblings, celestial or fallen. A strange coincidence indeed. Meeting Azazel early on would undoubtedly prove beneficial, especially considering the early incidents caused by his unruly cadre. And so, the plan begun with a rejection. No, Issei responded bluntly, his voice cutting through the tension. I'm so glad, huh? What did you say? Still playing her facade, Yuma momentarily displayed a crack in her act. Confusion flickered across her innocent face, mirrored by the students lingering near the Kuo Academy gates. I'm sorry. His blunt refusal whipped conspiracies in a flash. Did Haidu just turn down that chick? Nani the fuck? Is he stupid? Well, I mean he is, but you guys know what I mean. Maybe one of the Kendo girls finally hit him so hard that he turned to the other team. Speculations ran amok while Raynare teetered on the edge of embarrassment and bubbling rage. Issei, meanwhile, sported an imbecilic grin and explained his reason for shooting her down. We just met. Pretty sure, and what kind of girl wants to date a guy for no reason? Unless I'm being punked. He turned around dramatically, scanning the area while raising a challenging fist and wagging it in the air. So where are the damn cameras? Huh? You guys think this is a funny prank, eh? Why, I'll show you funny once I put your face in the dirt. Uma, or rather Raynare, blinked in disbelief. He was just being an idiot, she surmised. Of course, why would she expect anything more? Then again, why had Ria's Gremory kept an eye on him all week? Surely, not because his perversion rivaled the most debauched fallen. There was something about him, a potential that needed to be unearthed. And, in the name of her Lord Azazel, she was determined to reveal it by any means necessary. No. She stammered, maintaining her act as the blushing maiden. It's not a prank. I promise I'd never do that to anyone, especially someone I like. Issei paused. Ah, you like me? Seriously? Why didn't you say that from the start? Alright. Let's go. He agreed, not because of her adorableness, but because her act was nauseating to the point of inducing nausea. The younger version of him might have jumped for joy, but his tastes had evolved as he grew older. He longed for a sexy, scantily clad, long-legged fallen angel Penemu. The sooner Raynare vacated the premises, the better. Thank you. I'm so glad. He noticed the genuine sneer before it turned to a fake smile, and rolled on with it. Is there anywhere you want to go? Her fake smile contorted into a gaping jaw as Issei uttered a single sentence. Tell you what, there's this one particular hotel I've been dying to check out. Nearby students erupted into scandalized chatter, oblivious to the fact that the two main actors had eyes only for each other. The hotel he picked couldn't be any better. Not only was it in the fringes of the Kuo town and belonged to the Grigori, forcing those good little devils to stay clear, it also meant that killing him here wouldn't bat any eyes, and neither would entering the establishment in this form. She knew the guards of this place, and they knew better than to mess with her business. Please be gentle, Yuuma murmured, lying on a rather lackluster bed. This love hotel was a regular haunt for fallen angels, and this wasn't her first time here with a human. However, it was her first time being led here by one. If she were lucky, she might even bump into Lord Azazel once the charade was over, considering he was the establishment's owner. Not that he was here often. He must be busy dealing with more important things. As surprised as she was, Raynare had half expected this outcome. After all, it was Issei they were talking about, and perhaps it was naive of her to think he would opt for a traditional uninspired date. No, he had gone straight for the finale. She gave him credit for his directness. It was a daring move and an obvious indicator of why he had remained both single and a virgin. Oh well, she thought, it would all be over in 5 minutes, tops. It wasn't the method she had hoped to employ to confirm his hidden power, but putting his beep in her was still the quickest and most efficient way to gauge a person's worth, in more ways than one. He went for her breasts first. Typical. He didn't even bother to unbutton her uniform. She moaned, closing her eyes. She knew that guys liked to hear girls moan, and most of them were clueless about whether the sounds were genuine. Her moans appeared to be working on Issei, who was steadily picking up his pace. Raynare could feel his nervous hands attempting to unbutton her uniform, fingers fumbling due to his excitement. In reality, Issei was doing everything he could to keep himself from bursting into laughter due to the sheer absurdity of her act. It was fortunate that her eyes were closed, or she would have noticed his internal struggle not to break character. After a few awkward moments, Raynare decided to lend a helping hand by removing her blazer and unbuttoning her shirt herself. Her face remained a beet-red facade of modesty, eyes still shut tight, while her mind played out a vivid scenario of impaling that cheeky Gremory brat with a light spear through the neck. She would make for a pretty crimson gift for Lord Azazel. Can you turn around, Yuuma-chan? Again, Raynare mistook Issei's shaky voice for embarrassment and offered a timid nod. Unbeknownst to her, Issei was clamping his lips together, not to stifle moans of passion, but to prevent laughter from bubbling out. Yuuma was undeniably pretty, with her glossy black hair and a charming smile. However, Issei knew what lay beneath that facade, and it was a libido killer of epic proportions. She felt him climb on top of her back, straddling her legs next to hers. It was an unexpected move, but Issei reasoned that everyone had their own peculiar tastes. Consequently, she responded with a restrained grunt. Issei gently brushed her hair aside, revealing the nape of her neck, a particular weakness for all fallen angels. Kendo had imparted this tantalizing tidbit to him. She would melt like a candle whenever he caressed her neck and teased her nape. Clearly, it worked just as well on Raynare. With one subtle bite, Issei managed to stifle a squeal from her lips, and this time, it wasn't faked. Yet Issei couldn't help but feel slightly disturbed. The faint scent of lavender was all too familiar to his nose. Was this a common perfume among fallen angels? Kendo wore the same fragrance every time she initiated amorous encounters, which, frankly, was just about every time they met 3 days per year, give or take a few more. Her mind raced as her eyes widened in astonishment. Before she could berate herself for making that pitiful noise, the boy had already leaned in for another nip, kneading her tense back and sending waves of unholy pleasure rippling through her body. It was impossible for a mere human boy to create such sensations without prior experience. Fallen angels were creatures driven by desires, which could either empower them or render them incredibly weak. Right now, horniness had reduced her to the latter, and with every crude kiss he planted on her defenseless neck, her strength waned while her breath grew hotter and more ragged. Her loins burned, and she grew wetter and wetter between her thighs. At the slightest touch of his fingers, Raynare climaxed within 5 minutes. Whereas she needed to concentrate to maintain her current form, her body arched forward as 2 black wings burst from her back, sending the boy tumbling off her with an ungraceful yelp. What the heck? You've got wings. Breathless, feeling like she was being consumed by lust itself, Raynare tried to locate him. Her vision had blurred, and her outfit felt unbearably tight on her chest. She knew her wings had torn through the white shirt and bra, but her body refused to cooperate. This is not favorable, she thought, unable to move. And then gah. She moaned as he flipped her around, mounting her once more. She hissed as her wings were forcibly folded, pressed against the bed. Although her vision was blurry, she could make out the smirk on his face, indicating that this wasn't his first encounter with a fallen angel's true form. Terrible news for her. Who are you? She managed between her breaths, now powerless and at his mercy for the next few minutes. If she could stall him long enough, this blunder might not be beyond redemption. You know who I am, you asked me out. Idiot, the boy responded blandly, his voice dripping with venom towards the end. Inside, he deeply resented how similar her true form looked to Akenno's. The same scent, the same violet eyes. Even her hair was only shades darker than Akenno's. But he had risen above personal vendettas because he wasn't a petulant child. Raynare could still be of use to him. I need you to get Azazel to me. Her purple eyes widened. How did you? Whose side are you on? He squeezed his hands around her neck and Raynare writhed in a mixture of pain and pleasure. On, sh shit. Like that, did you? Issei monotoned. She even shared the same fetish with Akenno. What was it with fallen angels and covert masochism? Not that he was complaining, just wondering. Not that he was complaining, he was merely curious. He wasn't placing any blame on Akenno or her cousin for introducing him to the joys of sadism. There was a certain satisfaction in watching someone or something writhe beneath him. Perhaps he had become a bad person over the years, all thanks to his inability to be with his own wives. The bitterness and yearning had likely rendered him celibate because he felt nothing during this encounter with the alluring Raynare or her divine backside, which Volley would probably admire for a few seconds. Then again, this was Raynare, so Issei hoped his lack of sexual arousal was due to the current circumstances and not a reflection of him. Rest assured, I'm not here to kill you, because I haven't killed anyone. Yet. And I'm not you, I actually have a functioning brain. The statement caused her eyes to widen by an additional millimeter. Yes, I know you might be planning to kill me, and I don't care. I'll tell you why. Because I want to meet your boss, and you're going to help me with that. You won't betray me to other fallen angels because you know I'm too valuable to be summarily killed. And should your boss discover that you've disposed of his prized asset, he'll likely cast you aside somewhere else. Realization slowly began to settle amidst Raynare's racing thoughts. It was impossible this pervert had outsmarted her from the very beginning. So are we good? This is your biggest chance, you know, if you want to get Azazel's attention. His tone suggested that he knew more than she had initially suspected. Despite this humiliating situation, his words contained undeniable truths. Meekly, Raynare nodded in uncomfortable silence. Issei grinned. It was all going according to plan. Excellent. Now call him and inform him that we're meeting here. He's probably lurking around this place anyway. With that, he got off her and settled on the edge of the bed, placing one leg over the other's knee, seemingly unfazed by Raynare's alluring thighs or the sticky fluid that was slowly trickling down. Lady Penemu? It's Raynare someone. She paused to let her breathing a bit more steady. Someone wants to meet Lord Azazel. Tell her it's urgent and that whiskey tastes like oil. Raynare paused before continuing. He said it's urgent and whiskey tastes like oil. He even knew Penemu and the secret code to bypass any background check. Just who on earth was this boy? And how did he keep a calm face and outacted her own role of a fool? Now waiting, Issei hopped off the mattress and took a seat on the couch not far from the bed, putting one leg on top of the other's knee, unbothered by Raynare's luscious thighs or the transparent liquid that was slowly dripping down. You're in for a wild ride, Raynare, he informed her, realizing that he might have altered her destiny, either for better or for worse. Buckle up your seatbelt or strap on, whichever protective device you prefer. Before long, the Governor-General materialized in the room with a burst of black feathers, scattering them across the floor before they dematerialized. Show off, Issei muttered out of habit, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. He was relieved to see his teacher and mentor once again, with the same black hair and tacky yellow bangs, and his unmistakable burgundy outfit. Lord Azazel. Raynare jumped out of the bed, standing straight, now dressed in her customary revealing outfit that left little to the imagination. She couldn't help but feel a tinge of frustration that the mysterious boy hadn't spared a single glance or comment on her appearance, but her focus had never been on him anyway. It was always Azazel who mattered to her. Unfortunately, she had never seemed to matter much to him. Azazel's 12 wings retracted as he addressed Issei straight. "So hi to Issei, I have to say this isn't the way or place I'd expect to have my first meeting with you." He chuckled wryly. "Can't say I expected you to ever contact me first either. You do seem to pack a lot of surprises, eh?" "Surprises, sure, but none that you wouldn't like," Issei replied, still seated. "But let's cut to the chase. I want to talk to you about something she is planning to do. She intends to capture an exiled nun with a sacred gear and take her twilight healing for herself. Essentially, it's a death sentence for the poor girl. If you doubt my words, feel free to verify with the mastermind herself." At so Raynare's eyes widened in fear and Azazel's gaze turned piercing as he focused on her. "Tell me that he's lying, Raynare." Raynare swallowed hard, unable to meet Azazel's gaze. Lying had always come naturally to her, but she knew better than to deceive Lord Azazel. How had this boy unearthed her plans? Asia Argento hadn't even arrived yet, she was probably somewhere mid-flight over China. And she had taken great pains to ensure that none of her underlings mentioned the nun's name. It's all been done for you, my lord." Her voice wavered. "Now pardon me here, but how does acting out of my order translate to that? I have enough troubles as it is. I don't need you adding more to the pile," Azazel seethed, gritting his teeth in a rare display of his anger. First Kakabiel had rebelled and now this. So? Where is the girl now? Asia Argento, correct? The one I told you to bring back to me safely. Raynare stammered, "She should be on her way by tomorrow afternoon." "And here comes my proposition," Issei interjected. "Asia must stay with the devil. He wasn't going to let her be Azazel's guinea pig. You will convince the devils overseeing this town to take her in as Issei, a goodwill. A gesture of peace. Ria's Grimoire is in desperate need of servants, which explains why she's been eyeballing me for a while, eh?" Both Raynare and Azazel stared at him, taken aback by his audacious demand and his depth of knowledge. Raynare was the first to express her disbelief. "You know the devils." "A bit," Issei shrugged. That's impossible." Raynare pointed out. "He's never made contact with any of the devils." "She's right. A very good spy, aren't you? But I'm also not telling a lie." Azazel studied Issei intently, scrutinizing his facial features, eyes, lips, and even the faintest twitch of a muscle. Yet, he found nothing to suggest deceit. "And why would I want to do that?" Azazel questioned further, his curiosity piqued. "Are you with the devil, boy?" Issei responded calmly, "First, because the devils will treat her as one of their own far better than you ever will, Mr. Technozard." He noticed a flicker of surprise cross Azazel's face, not from the insult but from the unexpected moniker. "And yes, I am on their side, as well as yours, the angels, and the entire supernatural world side that seeks peace. But we can delve into that later," Issei continued, his patience wearing thin, a side effect of his altered sanity. "In exchange for her, I'll let you experiment on this." The vibrant crimson glow enveloped his left arm, revealing a red fingerless gauntlet as it gradually faded into view. At first, Issei seemed a tad puzzled, but then he realized the reason behind the appearance of the twice critical. He was still weak as shit. "Damn it, still this," Issei muttered, a hint of disappointment in his voice. However, the simple fact that he had summoned his sacred gear with ease and demonstrated its existence was enough to leave the fallen angel surprised. Azazel's grin widened at Issei's frankness. "Well, isn't this fascinating? I've been toying with the idea of running some tests on twice critical." Issei chuckled, not missing a beat. Yeah, you're itching to mass produce them, right?" Azazel blinked, caught off guard. "You're dropping quite a few bombshells here, hi to Issei. Are you sure that's a wise move?" "Of course it is," Issei said without hesitation. "I trust you, and I know you will trust me." Azazel leaned back, musing. It's not clear if that's arrogance, ignorance, or a testament to the bond we've forged through years of camaraderie. Either you're some sort of all-knowing deity, or this isn't your first rodeo." Issei grinned playfully, pointing finger guns at Azazel. "See? You've got it figured out. I'm from the future, which is technically my past. I'm here to change it because it sucked." The revelation brought a dawning realization to both Azazel and Raynare. It was a mind-bending concept, but it explained Issei's uncanny knowledge. "And fee, I have drag, not this lousy thing." Issei knocked on the sacred gear in question, displaying his preference. "I just need some time to buff up and I'll be peachy." "Drag?" Raynare repeated, slowly grasping the gravity of her situation. Killing him would have been disastrous, especially if he was a Longinus possessor. Lord Azazel would have been furious. "The boosted gear, you say? Dragon booster?" Azazel whispered, and Issei nodded as his gauntlet vanished. "Well, I'll be damned. I'm legally inclined to never say no to that kind of generous offer." Issei nodded, "That's right. But there's more to it. I need you to take care of Freed, Asia Argento's escort. That insane priest is working for Kakabiel. Raynare couldn't contain her surprise and curiosity. How much do you know? Issei remained cryptic yet firm. More than enough. And I'm also keeping enough secrets to ensure none of you try to eliminate me. Changing the future too drastically could have dire consequences. You understand what I mean, right? Azazel picked up the breadcrumbs. You want us to keep this between us? Issei affirmed, his gaze unwavering. Yes. I can trust you completely because I know you're not foolish and you understand the potential butterfly effects I might create. Plus, I can assist you in helping that burly man mend his broken family. Azazel's thoughts immediately gravitated toward one name. Barakiel. Barakiel had been a shattered man ever since learning of his daughter's affiliation with the Grimoire heiress. If this boy had the power to rebuild that fractured relationship, Azazel was more than willing to support him. Barakiel deserved another chance at being a father. Azazel's curiosity couldn't be contained any longer. Just what did I do in the future to earn this much trust from the Red Dragon Emperor? Everything you've said seems to check out. I don't sense any signs of deception from you, and it's clear you're not strong enough to mask your desires. Issei chuckled, acknowledging Azazel's astute observation. You fallen angels and your sin sonar. And as for trust, have you heard of Trahixa? The beast, yes, at this point, nothing he said could surprise him as Azazel assumed he knew everything. He probably knew of his taste in women. What about it? Issei's expression turned grave. Let's just say something really bad is on the horizon next year. Something very, very bad. The revival of the apocalyptic beast, all orchestrated by a particularly nasty evil man. At this point, I think they're still going by the Cows Brigade, but eventually, Rizavam will take the helm, and his reason for it is as moronic as devils are supposed to be evil. Azazel froze, the implications of Issei's words sinking in. The Cows Brigade was no longer just a rumor, it was a threat that needed immediate attention. Perhaps it was time to send Volley on a different mission. Seek out the Cows Brigade instead of pursuing Kakabiel. Yes, that would be very bad indeed, but I don't think you telling me this will be of any help. We're at white peace with the devils, and if I just send them a message implying the descendant of Lucifer is planning to bring the end times himself, none of them will ever believe me, regardless of my impeccable natural charisma. Issei couldn't help but roll his eyes at the diplomatic dance of it all. Well, I've got a plan to sweeten the deal for the devils. I'll use my status as the Red Dragon Thingy, flaunt it a bit, and make them eager to shake hands with you. Azazel raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Issei's audacity. You're quite confident in your ability to master that longiness. Issei's gaze remained unyielding. Confidence is my middle name, right after dangerous. I know I can do it, and when I can, I do. Azazel nodded slowly, seemingly willing to give Issei the benefit of the doubt. Alright, tell me more about Trahixa. Why is preventing its unsealing your endgame? Issei's expression grew grimmer as he delved into the grim details. Trahixa can't be unsealed. When the seal broke, it took nearly all the leaders of the three major factions, along with gods from different pantheons, to prevent it from devouring everything we hold dear like our favorite foods and sexual activities. Curiosity gripped Azazel as he pressed for more details. But what exactly happened? Did we manage to defeat that thing? Unfortunately, no. You all bought time by sealing yourselves, joining forces with Ajuka, Michael, and even the Nordic pantheon, tossing Trahixa into another dimension, a desperate gambit to isolate it from the world. That was your last-ditch effort. Issei's face showed genuine sorrow as he continued. It took Volley and me 3 years to find where the heck you guys were in the gap. 3 years to reach you and try to help. By the time we got there, Surzich's was the only one left. We couldn't save him. No one could save him honestly, I don't even know what kept him alive, probably his desire to protect everyone. He died moments after we arrived. The memory weighed heavily on Issei, a reminder of his failure as a hero. It was a painful memory, one that had set the stage for the countless trials he'd face in the future. Abandoning his own family was a choice many labeled as selfish, but to him, the true selfishness lay in expecting him to bear the burden of their weakness. So, our first priority is stopping Rizavam and above all, preventing the return of Trahixa, Issei concluded. I see you know about Volley too, huh? Azazel muttered, a hand under his chin, deep in thought. And you came here because everything was a complete mess. That's the gist of it, Issei huffed. There's way too much shit I had to take care of that I didn't even get the time to think. The beast ate many gods, Zazel. Gods. And without them around, guess who had to take care of the shit they're supposed to handle? Ah, Azazel smiled, leaning to the velvety red wallpaper. Unwanted responsibilities. They're a bitch, aren't they? Issei couldn't hold back a snort of agreement. Pain. Understatement of the century. It devoured my personal life. Missed the birth of my sons 3 times, and my daughters twice. When I finally met them, they were already mastering the art of walking. Every time they saw me, they stared like I was some strange mythical creature, and they'd clutch their mother as if I were a living enigma. A surge of anger flickered in his eyes as he vented his frustration. I didn't save the world 1,000 times so my children don't recognize me, he ground his teeth, his lips curling with a mixture of disgust and regret. How can I even call myself a man at that point, just a marionette? Those problems were the strings I kept cutting, but for every one I cut, 5 more latched on. Every damn time. If that goes on, I'll eventually reach a point where one day I'd stop putting out the fires and just sit there and watch the world burn. Millions or billions will curse my name and forget everything I've given up for them. Then my wives would grow to question and likely hate me for it, and my children would have to grow up learning their father did nothing while countless die. Issei's eyes blazed with brown anger for a brief moment, but he then took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. Fortunately, I never reached that point, and that's why I'm here now. So I don't have to teeter on the brink anymore. Azazel was left momentarily speechless, the weight of Issei's words sinking in. Those experiences were all too real, and he knew it. He decided to employ his usual approach, humor, in the hope of lightening the mood and finding common ground. You've been through quite a lot, haven't you? It's rather bizarre to see you as a boy when your mental age is probably that of a world-weary Great War veteran. Issei couldn't help but snicker, finding humor in his own challenging past. Despite his bitterness, he knew he didn't have to be perpetually grumpy. More or less. You see, Azazel. I'm just an exhausted guy who wants a good night's sleep, surrounded by exceptionally pretty girls with exceptional bodies. Azazel chuckled heartily, his laughter echoing with warmth. Those shoulders must be stiff from carrying the entire world, huh? Need a massage? I'm sure Raynare here wouldn't mind. Raynare wouldn't argue, not like she could either, but despite his sad story, and despite he wasn't lying, she still wasn't completely sure if this wasn't just one convincing act. Maybe because he had tricked her earlier and she just didn't want to believe him. She felt like a child, and it angered her that she was acting like a child, but she couldn't help herself. Thanks, but no thanks, he replied flatly. The blunt rejection stung Raynare this time. I don't stick my beep in chicks who want to bite my beep off. Ha! Azazel laughed heartily with his chest. Very well, I do. I'll pitch in as I can. Let's try and reshape the world so you won't bitch about it, yeah? Issei allowed a grin. Yeah. Sorry for bitchin'. Had to let it out else I'd explode. Understandable, Azazel reassured him. But, can I ask for some insights into what Kakabiel is up to right now? I'll help, but on my terms, Issei stipulated. You can make requests, not orders. I'm not obligated to agree, but I'll explain my reasons if I refuse. In exchange, you can experiment with my longiness. Just don't even think about getting close to my rear end. Azazel chuckled. Heh, sure thing. Whatever you say, Dragon Emperor. Or should I say Securite? Issei pulled a face at the mention of titles. Ugh, no please. Just call me Issei or Ice, like a regular person. Stop giving titles to folks. Titles make me cringe. Azazel raised an eyebrow, teasingly. You're quite temperamental, aren't you? Look, Issei let out a sigh, his irritation fading, replaced by a worn-out resignation. Just call me Issei. Or Haidu. I've had enough of titles. Alright. Haidu it is. Azazel sniggered. He could only imagine what this man inside a boy had gone through to be so grouchy. Not being able to watch his own kids grow up repeatedly was probably it. This guy made Barakiel's issues look like a joke. I assume you want to be left to your own devices so you can enjoy your life, yes? If so, I promise to only ask to tamper with your sacred gear not more than once per week. I'll do it when I feel like it, Issei replied. While Azazel was an old friend, they were still reacquainting themselves, and Issei wanted to keep some control over his schedule. I'll be quite occupied in the coming weeks, so it won't be this month. Today's Thursday, so Saturday. Azazel burst into laughter. Am I? I'll clear my entire schedule for the day. Great, because I'm planning to start giving all my body parts to Drake. Wait, are you sure? Drake had to interrupt. You won't be seen as human. Rather, you will turn into a dragon. I know what I'm doing, Issei retorted internally. I'll do it piece by piece, not my entire body all at once, you dip. Ah, I see. That's understandable, Drake conceded. You can do that? Azazel asked, intrigued by the idea. Sacrifice one part to gain power. Yes. Just give me a day to activate the boosted gear, I'll meditate or some shit. Azazel contemplated his options. This plan was too well constructed to be a scam, and even if it were, he couldn't help but respect the effort put into it. Still, he couldn't rule out the possibility of treachery, and he knew he'd have to deal with Issei if he discovered any deception. On the other hand, the opportunity to test his theories on a god-killer class Longinus was too tantalizing to pass up. Azazel grinned as he considered the possibilities. Alright. Saturday it is, and then I'll leave you be for the rest of the month. He nodded, staring at Raynare whose brain had short-circuited for a while. Now, what do you want done to her? Raynare's heart raced as she was suddenly thrust into the conversation. My lord. Issei considered her for a moment. She heard our entire conversation, and some things are best kept secret. Do you trust her? No. Want me to dispose of her? Raynare's world seemed to crumble at the suggestion. What? She stammered, her voice trembling. Cruel as it was, Issei knew this was part of Azazel's ruse. Issei was quick to clarify his intentions, smoothly adhering to Azazel's scheme. Now don't say that, he told Azazel. Give her another chance. It's not as if she's murdered the nun or me. Besides, she could be your best bet as a double agent. Kakabia likely won't suspect her true allegiance. She's an excellent actress. You think? One eyebrow was raised. Azazel considered this suggestion and ultimately agreed. Very well then. What do you have in mind for her in detail, other than her role as my spy? Rather than her, Fried is the one who needs to be dealt with. He's caused too many problems for what he's worth, Issei explained, recalling Fried's role in Kakabiel's plan to steal the Excaliburs. And since he's a priest, the devils aren't allowed to attack him first. Fine. You can count on me. I'll handle that mad dog. Raynare said, eager to prove her worth to Azazel. What else? Before you do, you gotta make sure Asia's safe. Don't let him use her as a bargaining chip. Worse, he'll probably kill her if he finds out he's being duped. Azazel acknowledged this revised plan. Ah, right. That's a valid point. If he's aligned with Kakabiel, he'll likely be cautious around my people. In that case, we'll need to adjust our strategy. Raynare, he turned to address her, since you initiated this, I want you to be the one to put an end to it. Don't mess this up, understand? Raynare straightened herself, her wings visibly stiffening. Yes. My lord. She responded with newfound determination. That's the spirit, Azazel commended with a smirk, instantly making her melt. This is Issei thought to himself, rolling his eyes. Despite the situation, he couldn't help but reflect on his own past when he had been the same kind of shoe kisser to Ria's. But at least he found Ria's rear end preferable to the old crow. Alright, secure the sister first, and then I'll put on a show for the devils in town. Sounds good. Azazel proposed. Issei mulled over before nodding with a sly grin. I'll join in on the theatrics. I've got a knack for drama. Do you plan to spill the beans about your time-traveling escapades to them? Just thought I should be in the loop if you do. Nah, not now. Not soon. Timing is key, and we're still miles away from the right moment. If I start blabbering about the future now, I'll be signing up for devil duty, and trust me, I'm not into that 9-to-5 demon gig. And as for the holier-than-thou angels, well, they can have their halo-waving fun without me. Raynare couldn't help but smirk at Issei's irreverent take on it, and Azazel cracked a smile in response. But here's the deal, Issei continued, Ria's Gremory will likely try to recruit me, and she probably will if I end up as a crispy critter in the next few days before Saturday. Before Saturday? Yeah, you see, I'll still be weak enough for her evil pieces to work their charm on me, Issei explained. Ah. What was your piece by the by? Rook. 8 pawns. Replied Issei. All which mutated at some point in the future, but I'm not planning to wait that long. Thus your gamble with your own body, Azazel nodded, confirming his hypothesis. So, do you need some backup until then? Or you're too manly for that sort of stuff? Absolutely, Issei admitted with a shrug. Pride left the building a long time ago. I just want to rewrite a few plot twists. You see, Raynare over here, he gestured playfully to her, originally gave me a one-way ticket to the afterlife after our date, which led to my reincarnation as a devil. I'd like to avoid that rerun. Azazel skimmed at the foiled murderer. I can trust you to not do that, can I, Raynare? Oh, of course. Not a chance. The governor nodded dully, facing the human boy again, his expression thoughtful. Now, most of the town belongs to the devils, but that didn't stop Raynare from approaching you. I'd rather we steer clear of any unnecessary skirmishes. Issei shrugged. I've had a few run-ins with some fallen angels in the past, but that was when I was already a devil. Not sure if he'll try to stir the pot again. Azazel leaned in, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. Recall any of their names? Issei scratched his head in contemplation. Names, their name is a watches-face guy with fedora, Issei decided. Kalwerner with her big bosoms, and that yellow-haired brat in goth dress. I think that's all. Onasik, Kalwerner, and Middle, they're all under my command, Raynare muttered with a mix of irritation. I'll tell them I'll flay them alive if they touch your hair, better. My bien, Issei hummed. Must be frustrating for the fallen angel for suddenly turning into his protector. Welp. Her fault for shoving a light spear on his stomach. What else here? Asia, Freed, Raynare, Kakabiel. He felt like he was forgetting something. Riser. Ah yes. Handling the flamey P-beep would be a challenge, especially since he had no interest in becoming Rhea's slave, nor did he intend to ever participate in her raiding game or any games for that matter. Confronting the young phoenix not as a devil would be interesting, to say the least. He first needed Rhea's to look at him for help. Not that difficult. Give her a few more days, and she'd likely have Kiba ask him to come to the Orc. He could adjust his approach then, once it did take place. At least, this was his temporary plan for now. But the list of concerns laid out, Issei felt like he was finally getting a handle on things. That's the summary for this month. Kakabiel might decide to drop by within the next month, but don't hold your breath. That's so? Anything else you're keeping to yourself? He briefly considered sharing information about the Excaliburs but decided against it, knowing the pivotal role they played in the three major factions' peace treaty. Changing that might not work in Azazel's favor when it came to convening the summit. Son of a bitch, the fate of the world relied on him still. Look, I'm changing a lot of stuff here already, you understand, right? Azazel nodded with a grin. Absolutely. We'll be working double time to tie up those loose ends. And, just for good measure, if any fallen angel tries to take a shot at you for any reason, just drop my name. Tell them you're rolling with Azazel, and that should make them think twice, even if they're on Kakabiel's peril. You don't need to tell me that, Issei said. I'll just have her around. Raynare tilted her head. What do you mean? Securing Asia should be a cakewalk for you, Issei began. Once that's settled, you'll stay with me as my girlfriend. Raynare's initial horror shifted to understanding as she grasped the potential advantages of the arrangement. You're thinking of using me to keep in contact with Lord Azazel, right? That, and the devils won't dare to touch you when you're by my side. It's a golden opportunity to spy on them and report back to me. Plus, you can roam their territory without a care in the world. Feels good, right? Raynare couldn't deny that the idea intrigued her, especially the prospect of vexing Rhea's Gremory and the other devils. Azazel raised a valid concern. But won't that raise suspicions about you? They're already aware of Raynare's presence no matter what form she takes. That's the point. I want the devils to notice me, Issei said. I need a valid alibi. I need to give them a reason to call me out one day so I can slowly settle in instead of bursting through their door yammering me big strong dragon. Worship me, you devils. Trust me, they'll start questioning me sooner or later if Raynare keeps sticking around. After all, devils do love their interrogations. He couldn't help but think about Sona Sitri, a formidable devil known for her shrewdness. Luckily, he didn't have to interfere much with her mojo, as she and her peerage were more than capable of handling their own affairs. Issei had no intention of becoming Sona's lapdog, she already had Saji as her loyal follower. Not that she'd ever allow him to sit on her lap. Sucks to be him. But maybe he could nudge him this time. Nudge him a bit to two other persons who he knew would fall head over heels to that Genshiru boy. So you admit it? You want to help our enemies? They're not enemies, he corrected her, effectively shutting her down. Our white peace should mean something, otherwise they would have had you killed for trespassing on their land. You're not as smart as you think you are. Raynare lowered her head in shame. Yes, Lord Azazel, my apologies. Issei smirked. It was kinda funny seeing Raynare acting like a kicked puppy. He almost felt bad for her until he reminded himself that he was facing his killer. Look, Issei said as he got up, ready to leave. At the end of the day, I'm in it for myself. I'm a selfish prick, but that's what makes me predictable and why you can trust me. The future I want requires the three factions to bury the hatchet and move on like adults. Everything I do will gravitate towards that goal. It's not something I want to mess with, and I've messed with a lot of shit and been fucked by it in return. But I can tell Azazel let out a soft laugh, seeing the uncanny resemblance between this 18-year-old boy and one of his lab assistants who had aged into the hundreds due to the stress of their work. In a way, it was sad to know that the world Issei came from had placed so much reliance on him, reshaping his worldview from a wide-eyed idealist into a jaded man whose hopes had been crushed. Azazel could sympathize more with people like Issei, those who had been broken by their experiences, rather than those who always looked at the bright side of things. It made him wonder if the optimists were just blinding themselves or had truly never experienced the harsh realities of the world. But Azazel could sympathize better with that kind of people. Broken kind of people, rather than kids who always looked at the bright side of things. Good for them, but he oftentimes wondered if they were just blinding themselves or had been blinded to tell what was real. So what's your plan now? Azazel asked as Issei walked past him to the exit. Go home. Sleep, Issei replied with a yawn, his exhaustion evident. Maybe get a better haircut, I dunno. Mind your business, old man. The goal of this guy, the governor managed to chuckle despite everything. Go with him, Raynare. Make sure he gets back safely. He nodded toward Issei, who was already on his way out, with Raynare obediently following. In the meantime, I'll explore ways to help boost your strength gain. Issei paused, turning back to address Azazel. Yeah, I can work with that. Just no pills, alright. Had some bad experiences with those. Antidepressants. They simply refuse to work. Azazel reserved his question for a more appropriate time, nodding. No pills. Hey. Great. Awesome. Issei's grin turned mischievous as he prepared to depart with Raynare in tow. Alright then. Let's go, Yuma-chan. Time to introduce you to my parents. And I just know you're gonna love them. T-fucking he. Raynare couldn't help but protest, what? How is that necessary? Because the devils need to buy the idea of you being my girlfriend, duh. So obviously, I'm gonna flaunt you all day tomorrow in school, and you'll be waiting for me because you're love-struck with a loser you got yourself stuck with. Azazel smirked. Raynare muttered under her breath, exasperated. Fucking really, she couldn't deny her bad luck. She owed Issei for sparing her from a meaningless death at the hands of the person she had once idolized. It was a humiliation that would haunt her, but now she was trapped, ensnared by this cunning human. Damn him. Damn this whole thing. Damn her idolization. And damn her for being so stubborn and trying to impress someone who had never looked at her. And damn this human for tricking her and being completely immune to her charm and body. And damn him for knowing her weakest spot and making her feel like heaven. And damn him for making her want to have that experience again. As Issei and the begrudging Raynare made their way out the door, with Raynare now appearing as someone of Issei's age, Azazel suddenly realized that he had forgotten to ask a rather crucial question. How did Issei get here in the first place? It was yet another item on the long list of things he wanted to ask, but Azazel figured that the boy deserved a break. Hopefully, Issei could find a way to shape a more peaceful future, a future that Azazel himself deeply desired. The revelation Issei had shared had reignited his determination. In his future, they had worked together, even if it led to unsatisfactory result that molded Issei to the disillusioned man trapped in a boy's body. Still, it meant that the peace he sought was achieved at some point before. It was not beyond his reach. Faith was not something Azazel expected to possess, having been tossed away by the big heavenly man himself, because Azazel pointed out some humans were hot, thus should be banged, but he did have faith in Issei's words. Nobody could change their personality so drastically in just a day. And that if there was anyone who wanted and capable of completely reshaping their own future, it should be someone cynical, though not necessarily pessimistic. The fine line between the two was significant. Pessimists often became nervous wrecks or deeply depressed due to their experiences of pain and hardship. Cynics, on the other hand, were typically abrasive and grouchy individuals who found it hard to derive pleasure from things. They tended to put a negative spin on everything, especially when it came to other people and their motivations. They were the kind of people who carefully assessed all the ugly possibilities and understood how the world operated. They knew where the pieces were before they were even set in motion. I do say Azazel hoped he hadn't misplaced his faith in the cynical, yet potentially world-changing young man. And so how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.